Okay, so our advanced level for graphing our quadratics in standard form would be where you have to do the factoring part. So it's in standard form with our a value already pulled out. And now we just need to figure out what our factors are. And so we're going to do our factoring, which is 1 times -3, which is our -3. We're going to break down our factors of 3, so 1 and 3. And in order for us to get a 2, we would need to do 1 minus 3. And so now as we factor, whether by grouping or with box, I'm going to do box. So first term goes in the first box, last term goes in the last box, and then we pick our pair, and we just put them in. So greatest common factor is an x. Greatest common factor is a -3. Greatest common factor is an x, and then greatest common factor is a 1. And again, I like box just because you can check to make sure you're good. So x times x is x squared, x times 1 is 1x, -3 times x, -3x, and -3 times 1 is -3. So that helps you see that your signs are all correct. And now when we write it in factored form, we're going to write -1/2, and then it's going to be x plus 1 and x minus 3. So this would be in factored form. And from there, we know a couple things. We know that our value in front, which is our a value, we know that it's negative, which tells us that our graph is going to go down. And we also know that it's less than 1, so we also know that it's going to be a little bit wider than what we're used to. All right, and now we're going to set our factors equal to 0. So we have x plus 1 equals 0, and then x minus 3 equals 0, and then we're going to solve. So as you break that down, we're going to go -1 minus 1, so we get x is equal to -1, plus 3 to get our x all alone, and we get x is equal to 3. So these are our x-intercepts. So now when we go down to the bottom to write down what we know a couple things. We know our zeros. So our zeros are -1, 0, and our other one was 3, 0. So that's something that helps us. If we're looking for our y-intercept is what happens when x is 0. So I know, I'm going to scoot it over here. So what happens then is if we put 0 in for x, so we want to know, if we plug it in, let's just do it over here to the side. So we have -1/2. If I put 0 in for x, this would be 0 plus 1 and 0 minus 3. So I'm just plugging it in to this equation right here, and I'm just saying when x is equal to 0, that's how we're going to find our y-intercept. So I'm going to go -1/2. 0 plus 1 is 1, and 0 minus 3 is -3. And so if I plug that into my calculator, so we can go -1/2, and then we're going to times it by 1, times it by -3, and we get 1.5. And so that's my y-intercept. And so when I go to graph that, my y-intercept would be the 0.0, 1.5. Not the best, but it's not horrible, just between 1 and 2. All right, and then we're going to look for our vertex. And so let's first graph our values. So we have our x-intercept being at our x-intercepts being at -1 and +3. And we also have our y-intercept being at 1.5, which we can hang on to in just a second, but 1.5 would be about here. All right, so to find our vertex, just like we did before, we want to find what is halfway in between these two values. So if to go from here to here, that's 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. So then if we divide that by 2, that tells me that I'm going to go 2 spaces over to find out where my axis of symmetry is. So my axis of symmetry is going to be this line right here. And so this is a line x is equal to 1. And so x equals 1, I know my vertex point is going to fall somewhere on that line. And so to find our vertex, then again, we're going to take our equation that we had. So we have y is equal to negative 1/2. We're going to now put 1 in where the x is. So remember, a second ago, we put 0 in because we wanted to know what happens when x is 0. Now I want to know what happens when x is 1 because it's symmetric. And so let's see if we can move this somewhere. And so then our other value would be, let's see, 1 minus 3. And so when I plug it in, 1 plus 1 is 2. 1 minus 1 is negative 2. And again, or we could have put that in our calculator right from the beginning. So depending on how comfortable you are with that, you could have put it in like straight up. If you're not loving all the integers and stuff that you have to keep track of, you can put it in exactly the way it looks at this level, and it will give you the right answer. Or you can put it in as pieces. 1 plus 1 is 2, 1 minus 3 is negative 2, and you're still going to get the same answer. And so we get 2. So what that tells me then is my vertex is the point 1, 2. So I'm going to go over 1, up 2, and that's my vertex point. And then remember that we talked about reflections and how this is even. So if this is 1 space away right in the middle, then 1 space away right in the middle would go here. And now I have my 5 points that I need. So here's my graph. Notice that it goes down like we said. So here's my left endpoint and my right endpoint. And now with that, that makes it so I can answer all my questions. So my vertex we got was 1, 2. And then when I looked at my endpoints, if x is going to negative infinity, that's your left-hand side. And if you look at your left-hand side, your arrow is going down. And if you're looking at your right-hand side, same thing, it's going down. So your right-hand side is x is going to positive, then your y's are going to negative.